Well, hello and welcome everybody. It's been a while since I've had the pleasure of being here. I'm Kate Bates, joined by Nathan Guerra. It is season one of 2021-22. ZRL, WTRL is back. We're now on week two, but Nathan, it's our first points race. And the Aero team kind of smoked the team's time trial last week. So what have they got in store for this week?
Yeah, it was definitely a good opener. It kind of showed the who's who amongst the powerhouses, who's kind of done their homework when it comes to the team time trial. We got 2 team time trials in the 8 races and 6 points races. Today's going to be a really different story, I think. Organization, whether or not it's a well-oiled machine, that whole story of what a team time trial is very different than full gas pulling the trigger for sprint points and KOM points, especially on Watopia Figure 8 reverse. Right from the get-go, we're going to have a sprint in the first 3 kilometers coming outside of the Essies. So this is going to make things really interesting, I think.
Yeah, whose sick joke was it to put them on this course? 3 kilometers in with a sprint. That's a little bit of a nasty one. Let's take a look at the course. There are 2 sprints and 2 KOMs, as you mentioned. Nathan on the Watopia reverse figure 8. It's not the hardest course that you would ever think on paper because these KOMs aren't too long, but I tell you what, it can absolutely bite, especially with so many points on option. So, as the name describes, it is a figure 8. They do go back and forth, winding around these roads a little bit. So they go essentially the reverse way into that finish line. But I have a feeling that before we get to the finish line, there will be a lot of damage done, Nathan. I can't imagine anybody just sitting around and waiting for that final sprint.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, the first sprint point, I think that we will have a couple of casualties even there coming through the Essies because the setup does happen. We may even have a counterattack going toward that Zwift KOM reverse that you see 2.5 kilometers. They're 1.8% on average. So it's not very steep all the way through, but there are some punches, especially right from the get-go as it gets into the double digits, I believe, for the gradient initially, then levels out a little bit. So those first 2 kind of kicks in the teeth, and then we head on over to Ocean Boulevard, heading toward that second sprint point backwards through the Essies. And then the Zwift KOM, I think that one, that was done on the World Championship course, actually, where it was won, obviously, with the finish line at the top. That is really a very, very steep climb right from the get-go, kind of a 2-tiered. And essentially, I think that I would say about a 2-minute or so climb amongst the A women is going to be the real pinch point. If anybody wants to get away as a team or send a couple off the front, it's essentially from there, I believe, 8 kilometers or so to the finish line, if I'm not incorrect, maybe a little more than that. So it'll be interesting to see if they do have any tactics set up specifically for that section. Of course, I don't think we're going to see a situation necessarily with a large bunch sprint if anybody does have some tactics like that set up and ready to go.
Yeah, it's not quite Paris-Roubaix, Nathan, but there will be some pretty tough sections out there. I think everybody's been captivated by what happened in the north of France last weekend. But let's go straight down to the women. 1.4 kilometres in, so they are halfway to that first sprint already. And as we can see, the road does kick up a little bit up and down. There isn't really too many flat sections throughout this, so you do kind of have to keep on your toes. I haven't ridden Zwift in a little while, Nathan. I hurt my back, but I got on this morning for a ride, scratched my nose at one point and got dropped. And it just reminded me that even on the flat sections, you really have to pay attention to stay in that draft. Otherwise, you do get catapulted backwards quite quickly. So, not surprising, we're seeing a pretty tight bunch.
Yeah, this section is definitely one to pay a lot of attention, especially with the first sprint point coming immediately after the Essies here as they just enter into it. This little bit of a right-hand turn, though, is going to be the final kick after the Essies. Finishing the Essies here. And this downhill and how it is attacked makes a huge difference. And you do see Rave here immediately going to the front with Davidson kind of leading things out. Houston with a little bit of a punch over the top, 31 kilometers per hour, 30 kilometers per hour. Nobody looking really to punch it over the top to get into a quick super tuck. A lot of times that could be a tactic here to try and grab that super tuck as quickly as possible. Looks like they're kind of holding their cards a little bit. This 200 meters to the line comes real quickly here at the bottom, Kate. It looks like everyone's kind of waiting for the next one to give their cards. Nobody's pushing their chips in yet.
No, well, we've got some big names out there too. Emily Watts is the big one standing out for me. She's Australian under 23 road race champion. She's also been a champion on the track as well. So very versatile. Got a good kick on her. Doesn't surprise me if she might not roll over the top. Look at that. I love it when people prove me right. But look at those Watts. Emily, you can slow down now. She can
13
probably
watts per
temper that
kilogram,
effort a
Kate.
little bit.
That
I
was,
know.
whew, I mean, amongst the boys, I'd be like, oh, watch out for this one. And that was pretty impressive. We saw over 190. Did she see 200 at one point? I mean, that was huge numbers here. Arrow with the pickup with Watts. Not a familiar name next to that Arrow, I don't believe, if I remember correctly. I think that's got a little bit of the drafting going on amongst the teams for that pickup with her.
Yeah, I mean, look, they have an incredibly stacked bunch of riders here, the Aero team. It's in terms of Australian national level and pushing international level, this is kind of the creme de la creme. In fact, it's fantastic to see them out and supporting this racing series. But I do feel slightly sorry for anybody who lines up against them, given some of their pedigrees. But Emily Watts, she's just incredible, Nathan. She broke her neck a couple of years ago in a bad accident, and her father built her a little bit of a stand, could we say, so that even with her neck brace and back brace on, she could still get on the trainer and start to turn her legs back over. And she certainly built herself back to full strength and has only gone on to just improve out of sight from there. So I don't think we'll get her in the WTRL for too long, though, because I reckon she'll be over racing in the Pro Tour in the next couple of years. And we'll look back at this, won't we? When she's belting along in Paris-Roubaix and say, we remember that time that she dropped 12 watts per kg. No, 15 watts per kg
Did
for
she
a
hit
moment there.
15? Oh my
She
goodness.
did, and just smoked everybody. But my advice to Em would be that she only needs to win by a centimetre, so she can probably temper some of those sprints a little bit. But in saying that, she might have a whole lot of cookies in the jar for tonight, so to speak. Not actual cookies, although she could have those too.
I mean, I wouldn't be saying no to any cookies out here right now when it comes to needing some sort of energy to produce those 15 watts per kilogram. We head into the next real point out on course here. We do see chat. Appreciate everybody jumping in. World Leaves Zwifters as well as Ryan Cole giving us a little bit of a Kate, go Kate Spicer being called out. I thought he was saying go Kate Bates. Excited to have Kate back, but I guess it's
Nah.
gonna be Kate Spicer
Well,
that he's excited
see,
about.
it's it's funny you say that, Nathan, because Kate Spicer was on our ride this morning, and I was quite confused for the first 15 minutes because people kept saying things that seemed very familiar to this Kate, and I was like, I don't think I know this person. And then it dawned on me. So it's good to see her out racing tonight. This morning she joined us to get a llama jersey. So
Which
we've kind of
sounds
upped the
really
stake.
popular. I think even the WTRL
Yeah.
crowd is asking, how did we get a hold of this No Drama Llamas kit? So if you're looking for a
Yeah.
No Drama Llamas kit, I heard that there's this ride about chicks and riding bikes. I mean,
Yep.
uh,
That's us. Just come hang with the chicks. I mean, for the most part, it's fairly non-offensive conversation. I can't say that for every time. Sometimes it gets a little bit spicy with the ladies, but for the most part, it's a little bit of fun. Now we're looking at Justine Barrow. She's one of the best climbers that Australia's ever produced. It doesn't surprise me to see her jump off the front. And further to that, she's had a couple of nasty collarbone breaks that have seen her rebuild her fitness on the trainer on Zwift, and she's really become somebody to absolutely watch out for the minute that the road kicks upwards. So not surprising to see her go on the march here. Smart move by them.
5 seconds immediately too. She was kicking, I think, a solid 8 watts per kilogram initially, held a 7 over the top. And this was that initial climb that we had talked about, the punch at the start of the reverse KOM. 1.8% average on the gradient for 2.5. But as you can see, it's in the front end of this climb where you can really do the damage. It's all about continuance from here on out. When you get that separation, even if it's flatter, Kate, speak to that a little bit. Because the speeds pick up through here, you can keep the damage and do more damage if you got more watts per kilogram, if you have more speed. Still being king or queen out on course, speed is going to rule the day if you get that separation early on with those sharp gradients on a climb like this.
Yeah, it will. I mean, Justine Barrow is a very slight figure, and so her watts per kg are absolutely through the roof. The damage she can do with a couple of pedals acceleration is mind-boggling, actually. All it takes for her to get a 10-second gap is a 5-second effort, because she's able to accelerate just so quickly, because she's one of those rare riders with such a high watts per kg, but an incredible 20-minute power, as well as having pretty powerful shorter distances as well. And she's also one of the riders who's more comfortable on her own, Nathan, because she gets into a rhythm. And for her, I would probably say, slightly less dynamic when the pace is going on and off and on and off again. That would hurt her legs a bit more. You find in real life races that she'll go to the front on a hill, just set her own pace, and one by one people will start to get dropped. She's not a rider who likes to climb from the back, so she'll be very comfortable here. And the onus really is on the chasing group. Aero do definitely have the favour of numbers here, and so if they don't form some kind of cohesive gap, Emily Watts isn't going to drag the bunch back to her own teammate.
Yeah, and you do see Arrow here, interesting enough. I think they were trying to send 3 across to work with Justine, perhaps, and it's really Team Rave versus Arrow out here today. We do have Arrow Flyers as well, so I'm not sure if they're going to work together, all of them against Rave, which would be really interesting to see how this ends up playing out. If the Flyers are, wanting to work against their same team brand. I have a feeling that maybe that's what's going to be going on out here today. Justine still with a 5-second gap over the group that's right ahead, just 1 second up from here. That 1 second does matter, though, as they come over the top. If Jacob Smith and Banerjee do punch it a little bit more, and I believe Vassal here from Team Rave sees exactly what's going on here, that if there is a little bit of a gap and those 3 throw down a little bit of a sprint, gain some speed, they could walk away pretty quickly and start getting a rotation from that snowball effect. It's all going to come back together. Nash, Vassal, they're going to close it down. It's going to be the Flyers, Arrow, as well as Rave all together. They did drop, though, the rest of this crew. It looks like Spicer, Butterworth, as well as Clark, and a couple other Rave riders with Schneider off the back as well. So it's really up to these other riders that have made this initial break. It looks like Barrow is going to be chased down pretty quickly here. I'm not sure she's going to be able to hold on to this. It's almost a little bit of, at this point, if she continues on with any kind of effort, with the reality of how quickly a group can chase down a solo rider at this point with that snowball effect, the avalanche of speed, as you can see how quickly they are actually coming on, even from the images here. It's going to be in her advantage just to chill out, get into a super tuck, and find a wheel now.
Yeah, she's done a good job of tempering her effort over the top. That's kind of my word of the day so far, tempering effort. I think, though, that when you're talking about these points races, I can say it a million times, you really only ever need to get those points by a meter, if that's all you can do, just to ensure that you get the points, but you don't waste too much energy. Now, I think it was definitely worth Justine Barrow having that attack and seeing how long it stuck, because she certainly had the opportunity to ride away from it, given her comfort um, as a bit of a diesel to get away and just keep pushing at that. But ultimately, when the bunch down a hill is just rolling that quickly, she came undone by that. But I think that we'll continue to see this. We've kind of got an understanding now that Emily Watts is going for the sprint points, Justine Barrow is going for the KOM points. I have a feeling they might continue to replicate that pattern, because we're down to a bunch of now 8, which is predominantly aero. We've got 3 from Rave in there, but they are outnumbered. It might be a few more than that, actually. We were talking about the two different aero teams, Nathan, and it may be that one team has white helmets and one team has orange helmets.
Oh, good.
That may be a way that they're setting themselves apart, because otherwise, if the names don't jump up, you don't. It's hard to not work together because you're just seeing the aero jersey. So it looks to me as though we've got some, yes, orange Zwift flat caps, or are they backwards map caps?
I am
I'm not
seeing
sure.
the flat caps here. Now, the question's going to be whether or not the other arrow riders are also following suit here. I am seeing helmets here on uh, Emily or Smith, as well as Watts here, though, is not following suit. So perhaps just on the day,
Oh, there goes that theory.
it's a fashion choice on the day here. We do have the men out on course. Their initial kicks across the sprint, we did miss them. Apologies on that, but they have made their way on through, and they're on to the climb here. We'll see if we can get the friends list nearby to load for us. It's giving us a little bit of a struggle. As it does, we'll be able to see who, where, what, when, and how amongst the boys as they make their way around on course. It does look like toward the front here. NZ Bro, Frodo, I don't know if you noticed this, but they are using the names here coming from Lord of the Rings. I think trying to maybe show off just a little bit about where where it was filmed coming out of New Zealand. But this is a Polish rider, actually, Tabalong, jumping on. I have not actually seen NZ Bro with anyone not from New Zealand until this moment, to be honest.
Well, yes, the name is NZ Bro is very Kiwi, isn't it? And they did well last week. They were about 31 seconds behind Aero in the team's time trial, which is a pretty strong showing. That kind of time can happen fairly quickly. But gee, I tell you what, Aero have got a strong team this year, led by Ben Hill, who we saw do some pretty big damage toward the end of last season, especially around the Surrey Hills circuit, if you can recall that one, Nathan. I think there's a lot of riders who will probably never forget how difficult that race was. So
Yeah.
I do think that the other teams might want to get a little bit creative in their tactics to make sure that Aero aren't allowed to fall into their really natural habits of dominance.
Yeah, we're looking to see. Apologies again, everybody. We're trying to get a few more of the riders to give everybody an idea what's happening here, but it does look like NZ Bro still off the back a little bit with Gandalf right now. There is a large group up ahead. We're going to see if we can get this to reload for everybody. It looks like it's going to give us a little bit of trouble here, so we're going to jump back on over to the women's racing as they make their way through the Ocean Boulevard on to. It looks like they're just leaving the underground here. Things have definitely calmed down, it looks like, as they kind of watch each other after those initial attacks over the top of the reverse KOM. They're going to be looking forward to the next sprint point out on course. Take a quick look, though, at how things have played out for the women's points so far. Emily Watts taking down those points for fastest through segment as well as first across the line there. 36, though, we are seeing. And so as far as the over the Queen of the Mountain mixed in with the sprint points, Davidson actually ends up with the most.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you know what? I'm going to rewind my comment to Emily about tempering her effort through there, because I completely forgot. Don't mind me about those fastest through segment points. She's nailed it. Sorry, Em. Bad advice on my part. That was well done. That's such a loading of points compared to the other ones that it is absolutely worth chasing. But it just goes to show for Dana Davidson that you can absolutely accrue points in different ways, different tactics. There's not only one way to go home with the most points at the end of the day. So I do like to see them spread across different ways like that. I do think also that the next sprint that we see, I think it's a sprint before the next KOM, or is it the KOM? No, it might be the KOM first, actually. Don't mind me. And
We actually do hit the sprint. We do. So we're going to be taking a
we do hit the
left-hand
sprint.
turn out of the S turn, leaving Ocean Boulevard, and it'll be a left-hand turn back through the Italian Village, and then up toward the sprint point, reverse SEs, and then back over to the KOM forward, and then back. So it does wrap around on itself a ton, though. Like, it gets a little bit confusing for sure.
Well, when they get to that next sprint, that's going to be, I think, a big opportunity. Knowing Em, she'll probably go for another fastest through segment, see if she can better her time on the last one. But I've noticed in Zwift Power, just to blow your mind for a moment, Nathan, that her 15-second average in that last sprint, 12.12 watts per kg for 15 seconds. That's pretty impressive.
Absolutely, and
Yeah, don't try
definitely, I
that at
think
home, folks.
they're gonna be trying everything they can. I think to keep Watts out of the picture. I think over the top of that forward KOM, if they can, because bringing her to the line, it's gonna be a lot of points on order here in just a moment. In the men's race, we do have Mark O'Brien on a little bit of attack. It looks like he has just been caught by the rest of the pack. We'll take a quick look over at how things are playing out over there. We'll also bring the points up here to give everybody an idea of where things are standing. It does look like it's going to be Hill, followed up by Boasted. That's a name that was, for some reason, was always piquing the interest of our friend Anna Russell. Actually, I think Mark Boasted coming from the world of triathlon, if I'm not incorrect there. Is that going to be Richard Law coming out of the UK racing here? That would be super interesting if that's happening there. Endo, Hill, Knight, Ross, Mikami, Liam White is in there as well. Ki Chiang, it's going to be, as well as Tanganen and Tabalong. That's your top 12 currently for the standings. Hill's kind of walking away a little bit with 5 points over the top of Boasted, though.
Yeah, well, we picked it from the start that he was going to be one to watch. And, Sam Hill is equally as dangerous, I think. So they've got a couple of options up their sleeve there. But interesting, I mean, I'm not too familiar with Boasted. I haven't seen him racing out here before. But if Anna's a big fan, then likely is from the triathlon world. And we have found, even with our winner of Worlds last year, Jason Osborne, that often athletes who come from other sports where it's not as skill reliant necessarily are often just monsters when it comes to monsters in a good way, that is, when it comes to the watts that they can put out in Zwift. And we are finding a lot of the triathletes are pretty successful. But you would have seen, Nathan, the success of Jay Vine over in the World Tour in his first year there after coming through the Zwift Academy. So I think we're kind of seeing more and more, and the Zwift Academy hasn't got long to go. They're about to finish. Just the kind of talent it unearths. Mark O'Brien on the move. He's another big name in Aussie domestic cycling and one of the smartest bike riders on the national scene. So when he attacks you, he's the kind of rider you don't really want to let go.
Yeah, O'Brien here on the attack, 7 watts per kilogram. Nice spot to kick through, actually. Leaving the dirt section, a lot of riders suffering a little bit more through there. It looks like 2 NZ Bro riders here coming across. It's going to be the Velo Kicks rider from Arrow now. And let's see if I can get a couple of names here on these other 2 NZ Bros coming across as well, if we can get some of these live updates to come on through. But that's the current situation. O'Brien now kicking again to try and make sure that this sticks. Great section to do this again because of the uphill grind that's about to be happening. It is a 1% steady climb here that is going to be happening. 2%. And, that little bit of extra he's putting down there, 7 watts per kilogram, probably we're going to be seeing 6 or so, maybe a little even less, 5 from the pack. So let's go ahead and jump over to women's racing, though, real quick. They're about to head into their next sprint point, and let's see if Watts has the watts again to kick into those double digits.
It's a great name, isn't it? I think you see it on screen and you almost wonder if that's actually her name or if it's a screen name. But no, it actually is. Emily, she's from Bathurst, which is just outside of Sydney, a smaller town, but it looks like she's absolutely on a mission again. Hitting double digits just for a second there.
Did she go too early?
Almost.
Did she go too early?
Well,
Is she going to be able to nip it at the
again.
line? It's just barely.
Oh.
Nash was right there. I think she got her, though. That was a little too close for comfort. I think Emily might have went a little bit early.
My fault. That might have been my fault. Sorry, Em. I wonder if Em is listening and thought, yes, I can probably temper my effort a bit more. Um, and she did that, and Clara Nash very nearly got over the top of her. Um, she was Em was lucky to be able to save that by accelerating again and getting out of the seat. But yeah, I whoopsie. I hope I didn't put the hex on her there.
Look at the
But a good
speed
ride
coming
from Justine
too.
Barrow coming in third. Because look at that. Justine Barrow, who smashed it over the climb, coming in third, she's going to just be accruing masses of points.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a look real quickly here. We should have the sprint segments populating real quickly. We'll get
Well,
those
they
in
all look
just a
pretty
moment.
comfortable
But
now. Let's count these. We've got 2, 4, 6, 7 aero riders, 3 rave riders. A little bit outnumbered there, but I think Rave are doing a pretty good job. Clara Nash, that was a sensational sprint. That was, really well timed and very tenacious to almost get there. As long as they can take a bit of a breather now and make sure they recover in time for the KOM that's coming up. Because, as you mentioned at the top of the show, Nathan, that's a really nasty one. And once we have the sprint points up, because I know you're furiously looking for those at the moment, I really want you to talk us through some bikes tonight because I'm noticing a whole lot of
look at all the
Trons.
Trons. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. And I think there's been a lot of So there has been a lot of chatter about all arounders on this course. That there's so many sprint sections, fast sections. There's so much punchy climbing as well, where it's really gonna matter, especially on this next climb coming up on the forward KOM. It's gonna matter hugely as to how light your bike is, and those couple of seconds could be the make it or break it. There's been so many times where I've been in a extremely high powered race over the top of the forward KOM, and really that climb, it really does come down to just a couple of meters that can make or break your race, and whether or not you grab onto a wheel because the speeds get so high on the other side, somebody punches again. So I have a feeling perhaps riders are just kind of trying to get the best of both worlds a little bit here with that Tron bike. We also saw a couple of, I think the Scott might have been a suggestion as well. There's a kind of an all-arounder Scott frame that's recently been added. So a couple of recons, they're pushing towards all-arounders. For me personally, maybe it's just because I kind of like punchy climbs. I would still go toward a sprinter's bike. I would want that high speed coming through the sprint sections. And especially on this section, the next time they're going to see this, it's going to really be all about some, I'd say, 55 to 60 kilometers per hour and open up even to higher speeds coming on through here with that downhill. Personally, I'm going S5 2020 with the DT switch deep dishes and just don't mind because it's only about a minute and 50 seconds or so, maybe a little bit less than that amongst the men, and punch it as hard as I can with as much speed as I can with that bike. That would be my choice. But definitely, you can see, I don't see any S5s out here, and I don't see any DT Swiss deep dishes at all. So the community's
Well,
not agreeing with me.
presumably that's your bike choice for aerodynamics. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, so the new S5 2020 is it's just the fastest all around as far as speed goes. It's so incredibly
Yeah.
fast. So it actually, I believe, took 8 seconds. It might have come down a little bit since there was an update, but it is a hugely upgrade when it comes to comparison to the regular Zwift bike or even the Tron bike. I think it had a solid couple of seconds over the top of it over some of the tests that were done out there. Although it is a heavy bike, it's very, very fast. Oh, incredibly fast. So
Yeah. Well, it's what I find really interesting about that is that in real life, and I guess I would tend toward it in Zwift because Zwift is so realistic. I like heavier bikes for sprinting because I have the initial acceleration to, outweigh the fact that it's a little bit heavier, and then I feel as though it gives you a little bit more grunt and acceleration once you're up to speed. But certainly for any of the lighter riders, that the heavier bike kind of negates that initial kick that they may have. So I would be interested on, the testing of those bikes on riders with different power profiles. I think that could be quite interesting. Now, we're not talking about a sprint right now because, Nathan, they are on this nasty final KOM. It's only 900 meters, but and averages 5%, but, big but, it really kicks up to some steeper parts here.
Yeah, we do get right initially up into the double digits for the gradient. Now you do see it level off a little bit, kind of a two-tier. Whether or not you keep the speed and the power in through here is a big difference as to whether or not you're going to be able to hold those gaps. Justine's not backing off. It looks like holding a steady 5.2, well over the 4.2 we saw from Jacob there. Banerjee closing the gap up as best as she possibly can for third wheel. Smith from Arrow also trying to come across. Looks like we're going to have 4 Arrow women here all going over the line together here. Watts trying to hang on. The question is if she does or they wait up for her to give her that final sprint. Rave, it looks like, on the back foot, going to have to settle for 6th and 7th place or even less than that, as we do see Griffiths as well as Jen just holding on to these wheels here. Davidson not involved any longer. She was the rider who was keeping Rave in the conversation at the top of the preems, actually, but that's not going to be happening any longer. Barrow off the front. She uses the feather power up. She's absolutely gone at this point, and the rest of her team's going to pick up, just sweep those points, and it looks like they are going to clean the plate here with the top 5.
Barrow's done a really good job with her use of power-ups. I noticed it on the last KOM, also with a feather when she accelerated and attacked at the bottom, which was really great timing. The power-ups can make such a difference when they're deployed at the right time. Emily Watts has just snuck on the back, so they now have essentially a team's time trial, the Aero Mob. Now, they won by a minute 42 over Rave last week, so they've obviously worked on their technique over the season, notwithstanding the fact that they just have a absolute team of hitters across the board this season. But this is a really significant gap, 6 seconds back then to Miranda Griffiths, who is on the front of that next bunch. Nash, now Clara Nash, she was the one that nearly came over the top in that sprint, so she's probably the one that they would be worried about in a final sprint for Emily Watts. But if this group just rolls over together, and it looks to me as though they're working together pretty cohesively, this gap I think will continue to open. It's almost out to 10 seconds. And I mean, Anna always says, and I miss Anna, she'll be back soon, but she has a small human to tend to at the moment. And by small, I mean a couple of weeks old small. So we'll forgive her that she's not here. But she's always saying that 15 seconds, once you've got a 15-second gap in Zwift, it's very hard to get back. We're nearly at 10 seconds. And in this case, I'm thinking that 10 seconds might be that magic number.
Yeah, and it looks, I mean, with the reality of 5 riders up the road and you've got 2 riders trying to work against that, it just almost becomes an impossibility. And on top of that, you've got 2 Aero flyers in the wheels and you start thinking, well, they're not going to chase down their, team brand. They're going to let that go at this point. Really, it's going to be a team time trial here for Arrow. I don't think we're going to see any kind of change-ups. And my question is, what are they going to do with all the points that they've accrued at this point? Because when we look at this and how they're going to, distribute these, and if it matters at all here, I mean, Nash and Davidson still at 57 and 47, as you can see. So that does keep them in the conversation a little bit still here. And how they finish amongst these 2 Aero flyers does matter for the overall points on the day. So no losing heart here. Yes, they're going to lose those 5 spots, but they can still salvage something with 6th and 7th place across the line.
Well, it is an interesting point situation, isn't it? With Justine Barrow figuring very heavily in now 3 of those 4 intermediates. She's taken a big advantage over Emily Watts, who has won the 2 sprints but hasn't figured too high up in those climbs. Well, she was 5th over the last one, but 5th has been her best position so far. It's a tough one for Rave. I mean, I think Dana Davidson, we saw last season, she is a very impressive rider. But when the sheer numbers are against you and it's a downhill run, essentially, now it's about 8 or 7K to the finish that is more or less downhill or flat, it's going to be pretty difficult, even if they chased at full tilt, to get across. But of course, the risk is if either Nash or Davidson do too much work here, that the Aero girls may then attack her, because I mean that's what I would do. If I was in that position, I think that they have a bit of run of the mill tactically.
100%. There's not much to do here at this point. I mean, Rave. The only thing that Rave I think could do at this point is start playing 1-2 games. They do risk a lot by doing that. If they are just caught, they start sending one rider off the front. They get caught. They've wasted energy. Those riders are just following wheels. They can essentially work together to shut all that down. They burn less energy, and then they just lose a sprint anyways. It puts you in a really hard place actually with this kind of a situation. It does look like they're settling into a steady rhythm up front now at this point. As you can see, Watts and Barrow here. Well, I mean, that's a pretty serious efforts here coming out still here. 5 watts per kilogram.
Yeah.
They're not waiting up for anybody. It looks like they're very interested in making this a fast race still.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we do need to consider the tactics amongst the Aero team, that it often becomes the situation where they have quite clear roles, because they are a team that have all got really good race experience and they know how to race as a team and quite strategically. But that all changes when the race gets into this dynamic, and they may well have team director in the ear saying, all right, well, we're going to get an Aero win here, so go your hardest and see what you can do. And so they may play a little bit of cat and mouse and race all the way to the line, rather than just rolling over and sprinting at the end as we would expect them to. But for, Emily Watts, she's the known sprinter amongst this group, and she's certainly pulling her weight just as much as anybody is.
Let's see if we are getting some requests here, and I do definitely appreciate them 100%. See if we can get across over to some of the other categories as best as we possibly can. We are looking for them as soon as we can. We will jump across to those as well. We do definitely appreciate everybody hanging out and looking for those other categories here. It does look like, let's go ahead and take a quick look though over at how the men's racing is playing out for the current point situation. We'll go ahead and jump over and have them on screen, but apologies again, everybody. For some reason, we're just not getting as you can see, it says group riders nearby, some sort of a little bit of a glitch for us out here today with that. You do see there are 58 in the group in total. I believe we're around the maybe front runners here, but we can at least give you an update on the current fastest across line, first through segment points. Currently 99. Hill is absolutely dominating this. Kate, can you speak to that at all? I mean, that's to be expected on the day.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Hill is so well respected, as he came up as a domestic rider in Australia and is absolutely one of the best. For him to now be building his Zwift career doesn't surprise me at all. And his wife is actually racing in the C grade women. She was a world champion on the track. It's pretty impressive that she's back on the bike. They also have a small human. It seems to me like Zwift fills that fantastic hole for these riders who are so strong and so capable, but also trying to balance real life in there and COVID amongst all of it. And I think we've seen some of the, creme de la creme jump over and really develop their Zwift racing skills through, having to really, because they're stuck in lockdown. A lot of us in Australia are still stuck in lockdown and going a little bit crazy. So big shout out to everybody in Sydney and Melbourne who are pulling their hair out. Good to see them on Zwift. So it doesn't surprise me that Ben Hill's got such good form at the moment because he's got such a solid base to build off. And his brother Sam Hill, who I spoke of earlier, he's now sitting up in third. So he's moving up consistently as well.
Do see him looking to go across to O'Brien as well. Gallagher there from HKL involved, it looks like. So good to see that we got some very serious attacks here. It looks like NZ Bro coming over the top here. We'll see if we can get an idea. That may be Bostad actually, I think, going over the top here. Lots of attacks coming into the final few kilometers here of the men's A race. Look at the speeds coming through. Look at the separation here. This is all hands on deck. Nobody's messing around at this point. I have a feeling that we're going to continue to see something like this for those that do not want to see a sprint to the line. Hill, though, as you can see, sitting in, following the wheels really well, sweeping up so many points. There's probably a lot of confidence there, I believe, coming from Ben as well as Sam to try and, just grab this first across the line for the scratch race on the day. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
with the way that things have gone so far, I think Ben's just got the confidence, follow the wheel, and I'll just make it happen again.
Well, a really interesting rider in this group is Nick Squalari, who is in there as Envelo Kicks because he makes bike shoes, very cool bike shoes, I might add. He's a podiatrist. He is a gun time trial. It doesn't surprise me. He's got his time trial helmet on in there. And he is, year in, year out, a really strong, solid time trialist. I have always thought that he might give the hour record a bit of a crack. He's definitely, if he's got the legs, a real danger for a late range attack a couple of kilometres out, because I think that would really play to his strength. In saying that, I haven't actually seen him in the Zwift world yet. So let's see what he does, but it's great to see him out there racing.
And it looks like a little bit of attack here coming from O'Brien, getting off the front with his teammate as well. It's going to be Matthew Ross that's with him in tow. To be in this lead group right now, Kate, at the highest, Ken Chong with NZ Bro has pulled 5.4 watts per kilogram on average for the last 34 minutes. And now up and over the top here, it's going to be another attack coming from, I'm not sure who, that may be Hitoshi Aguna, that's looking to go across. It looks like, no, it's going to be actually Pesci that's making that attack. Julien Pesci here coming out of France here from the Wolf Pack. That's over the top of the rest of the riders right now, trying to make sure that this is not going to be a sprint situation here. O'Brien, the initial instigator now, with a counterattack coming in from the rider riding for Wolfpack right now.
Wolfpack, what do they think? They're Quick Step to Koenig or something with a name like that, although they're riding like it, to be fair. They're not too far out from the finish, so this is certainly the pointy end of the race, and the women would be very close as well to that final finishing line. And this is where, on a course like this, there is just no point sitting back and waiting for the action to happen. It's probably a bigger bunch in the men than we might have anticipated, but you did mention maybe not a huge bunch sprint, but definitely still a select bunch.
I'm going to see if we can get on the avatar of Hill and maybe the one to follow, as he's shown over and over again that he is the rider to be watching out for if it does come down to a final sprint. And he has been able to follow each and every one of these wheels here, 172 beats per minute. I think NZ Bro are trying to make something happen here to try and disrupt what Arrow's been up to. The wheels have been being followed there pretty quickly. A little bit of a kick off the front here. Hill still really well positioned. This is the rider I think we're going to be sticking with to try and make sure that we get all of the images exactly as we need them. Velo kicks here. Squalari maybe just going to be the lead out man to bring this back together. You did see it say he has a an engine that may be a good lead out man for the likes of Hill to the line.
He'd be a very good lead out man. But he would have to go quite early. He's not necessarily known for his explosive speed, but he will be able to just ramp it up and ramp it up. And he's a great addition to the team as well. Aero have really managed to get the absolute best of the Australian domestic team onto their calendar, which is really cool. And I think Aero has done a tremendous job of building into esports and really dedicating their time and commitment into building some fantastic teams as well as a fantastic community. So big shout out to them and the fellas behind that, because I think they're doing a fantastic job. Oh, here's a late range attack for you. I'm not sure that he's opening the gap he needs. Ben Hill is absolutely responding. Great use of power-ups. Ben Hill going over the top there.
Oh, no. NZ Bro. Wow, NZ Bro out of nowhere. I mean, what
Wow.
was that? The timing. I'm going to see if I can
Holy
figure out
moly.
exactly who the rider
Okay.
was. But that was just like,
Woohoo.
oh, I'm just going to wait and for the right moment. And out of nowhere, just completely demolished the pack. NZ, bro, making it happen. Let me see if I can get a name on that one. But real quickly here, let's make sure that we catch where the Watts here from Emily Watts. Justine Barrow not going to be able to touch it. It's going to be 3 across the line. Arrow obviously taking that one down on the day. Raven Vassal here with a nice attack. Good on them. That's going to get them across the line here for 6th place, able to attack Jen P. Nash, her teammate. We'll see if Nash is going to be able to drop the rest of the Arrow Flyers. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. And this was well played by Rave, at least, to salvage something in the women's race out here today. Actually, Nash, I think, is going to get the better of Vassal here. She counters things right on up, and it's going to be Jen and Griffiths as well as Davidson rounding things out amongst the women here in this race. We'll see if we can jump across and find a few of the Bam Babes here in the B category. We'll see. Hopefully we do have, we're getting that little bit of a, oh, no, it looks like it's going to be nicer to us here in with the women's racing for the B category. Great to see. Off the front, though, in the women's category, M. Is this the same M from last season? Didn't we have this same M? I'm not sure. I think we had an M
We did.
from the Bam
We had
Babes.
M dot. Don't you remember we called it M dot?
M dot is back.
I don't believe it is. I don't believe it is M dot, but I like that we now have a new M dot. She's keeping the rap names going, and the theme. Well, we can notice all of the TBR riders have a full stop before their name. I don't know the convention around that. I'm going to have to ask our tech genius Martin what the go is with all of that. But the Bam Babes are looking strong. TBR have a huge team here. I mean, you questioned before were all the aero teams riding together? Well, are all the AHDRL, gosh, without that on the screen, it's a mouthful. The Hump Day Rider ladies teams, are they all working together? I don't think they are, because otherwise there wouldn't be a lot of a race on. But it is great to see some really familiar faces from last season. And M Dot, we're just going to keep calling you M Dot Miranda, because I think that's a little bit more fun. She's killing it. She just looks really consistent and really comfortable. And this gap is continuing to open up. Do you remember how good Lam Kong was in the last season, Nathan? Because she was a name that we just kept repeating ad nauseum, because she was riding so well, always in every move and off the front. So it's a very impressive ride from M Dot to just ride away. But now this is an interesting balance, because they look like they're foxing a little bit. One rider will be pulling a turn, but it's not looking super cohesive, and they are so close to the finish that I suppose with a 47-second gap off the front, they've accepted that they're now racing for second.
Yeah, good game essentially is being called, I think, between the riders. Interesting enough, though, you were speaking to the situation with Lam Combe from last season. She hasn't disappointed, though. 97 points on the day so far. Esdale there with Bennett, Gartland, Williams. The question for me is, did Miranda just save for this attack? Because where is she in the overalls here? I'm not seeing her in the points so much. So really, I think waiting for this attack to make something happen.
Yeah, good pickup, because there is no M Dot on that list at all for those intermediates. But Lam Kong, I mean, yeah, good timing to give her some rave reviews, given that segment points just popped up. Thanks, Martin, for that, making us look good. But M Dot goes over the line really easily by nearly 50 seconds in the end, depending on how quickly this bunch now rolls in. But they are certainly setting up for the sprint. Isn't it easy to say setting up at 43k an hour, like they're just rolling it in? But they will be accelerating to much higher speeds when they actually open up the engine.
Will Lam Kong make it happen again here? 6 watts per kilogram, real quickly. 179 beats per minute already, though. Is she going to be a little bit maxed out? Now it's going to be Tash now pumping up into 6 watts per kilogram. Holly coming over the top. Lam Kong, though, again with an arrow power up, saving exactly what she needs. The feather not going to be able to do it, I don't think. Lucy from TBR trying to use the big ring to come over the top. But Kong, she's going to beat her chest. King Kong it across the here we go. Lucy, Holly, Emily. That's going to be the situation.
I thought you were Dave Toll for a moment there, Nathan, with those cliches
Well, I
getting
mean,
thrown out there.
well, I mean, she sets it up so nicely with the name. I mean, you can't
She
leave that one
does.
alone. I mean, it's right there in front
No,
of you.
I agree. And as we saw last season, I love the encouragement that always comes out of these races where riders are really cheering each other on and encouraging them, which is really cool. And we need to remember that the men's is not just men's; it's actually men's mixed. In the A's, we tend to see straight men, but in some of the other categories, last season we did actually a number of times see quite a few women in there. Rebecca Wyasak, if you can see her just sitting in the back of this comfortable bunch, she's been world champion in the individual pursuit on the track. So she's not somebody that you really want to come to a sprint finish with. She's very powerful. She did retire a couple of years ago. It's great to see her back racing in some capacity. And I'm not sure how much time she's been able to spend on the bike now that she's, got a real normal life and a small human. But Rebecca Wyasak is certainly, I have not seen many people in all of my years across all of the disciplines ever be able to output quite as much power as she can.
Speaking of small humans, I think we have a few small humans hanging out in
Yeah,
the
sorry
broadcast
about
with us.
that.
It's all good. It's the reality of lockdown in Australia at the moment. I just want to speak to Raven Mad. I'll have to agree with you, Raven Mad. Might be Raven Mad as I am from that teammate name as coming out of the US of A. I wonder if actually riding out of the USA right now, she covers a little bit of attack here. It's going to be T Irish. And this is 71 points currently leading the points table at this moment. And she's going to open things up immediately coming out of the C category right now for the women. Gets a little bit of a gap. 8.89 watts per kilogram has the kick. And she is gone at this point. Not going to be touched. And she's going to do a lot of work for Team Raven Mad. One of the newer teams this last ZRL season that we really enjoyed to watch come out on the scene, and they are showing that they are here to stay. 3 across the line, Arrow Stingers, followed up by Carmelo, and then it's going to be Emily, and I think Wyasak somewhere in there in the top 6 or so. That was the situation.
She snuck in yeah, she snuck in there. I think she did a good job there. She's just going to keep getting fitter and fitter. I'm going to keep my eye on her. In the next few seasons. I was very excited when I looked through the start list.
Did you race? Is that like someone that's known amongst you and your racing crew back in the day?
Yes, she was one of the absolute best on the track, Nathan. I can't undersell just how good she is. And I appreciate she hasn't raced for a long time, but it's sensational to see her back on the bike.
Well, maybe we need like a head-to-head now. Like we need Kate on the bike.
Ooh.
And we need to bring commentary crew mixed in with some of our racing crew. Give us a second here, everybody. We got a few replays to show. We were getting some requests. Let's go back to the men's A's here real quickly. This is the situation. We saw Ben Hill open things up, grabbing Rich Law's wheel there. As you could see, it was going to be his teammate from Arrow that we thought was going to take it down. But no, it was going to be the NZ Bro Rider coming through. Absolutely demolishing. That's going to be Ken Chong, followed up by Matthew Ross, who overtook Ben Hill, James Harvey, and then Rogério Costa coming out of Brazil. So that was the situation in the men's race. Amongst the ladies then, as you can see here for the replay with the B category, did open up with Lam Kong, as we saw, but already across the line for the win before this. And you said that was by a solid 50 seconds. It was Miranda, our new M. Throwing down on the mic. Good to see Lucy Holly, followed up by I believe that's going to be Tash. So that was the situation. Those are the replays that we do have for you. Kate, it's been absolutely awesome to have you back here and great fun and commentary here. We should probably take a look here at the results if we have a little bit of a time, if small humans will allow, for the broadcast
Lockdown,
here
Nathan.
today.
What can I say? Yeah, let's take a look. I want to see some of the fantastic team names this year. I laughed so much the first week of the last couple of seasons in the 2021 series because people get very creative. So let's take a look at how this played out. For the women, we'll start Emily Watts. Gotta love her sprint ability. She took the win ahead of Justine Barrett, and by the win, we mean over the line at the end. Smith in third, Katie Banerjee, great to see her back. She was in fourth. Lisa Jacob in fifth. Clara Nash coming in sixth. Vassal in seventh. Jen Pettinan in eighth. Miranda Griffiths in nine. That's another big name from the Australian NRS a few years ago. And Dana Davidson rounding out that top 10. That is the kind of top 10 that you would have seen at an Aussie national title not that long ago, Nathan. So a very impressive start list.
We're going to go take a look here at the top end of this situation. Is that going to be interesting enough? M. Bennett, it actually was Bennett that came across the line. So she was involved in a couple of the other points earlier on. We didn't catch that the last name was Bennett there. That is going to be our Miranda that ended up winning by that 45 seconds. Then we do have Lamb Collin coming on through 46 seconds back. We're taking the group sprint. Esdale there followed up by Diop. It's going to be Gartland in fifth. And Williams in for sixth. Bond in for seventh. Parks rounding out the top eight. SM in ninth. And Hall in for our... it's going to be Liz Hall in for 10th place in amongst the women. On over to the C category.
All right, we've got T Irish taking the win ahead of Beck Wyasak, who we've talked a lot about.
I missed that. Good job. I actually missed that Wyasak was taken down that second.
Yeah, no, that's unreal. We need to get her rainbow stripes on her Zwift jersey, though. Trudy Stevenson coming in third. Danielle Blake in fourth. In fifth, we've got Emily Swales. Ivana Cicelli in sixth. We've got Sharon Boyd in seventh. Zoe Stolton coming in eighth. Tanya Launder coming in ninth. And Anna Silva rounding out that top 10 for the in-betweeners. That's a fantastic team name.
I believe our D category are still rounding out their race out on course. And it's going to go ahead and say head on over to the... head on over to Zwift Power, or not Zwift Power, to WTRL Racing for the rest of those results. It's going to be Chong here coming on through, though, for NZ Bro Frodo. They're 37.31 at 5.5 watts per kilogram. I have a feeling he might be getting here, we're going to give you a cup, buddy, but the digital cup. Yeah. We'll see how that ends up playing out. Ross coming on through here in second for Arrow, followed up by Hill in for third, but Hill took down a ton of points there for Arrow on the day. I have a feeling that they most likely will be very happy with a top three from him as well. Harvey there for fourth place, it looks like, for NZ Bro Frodo. It's going to be Costa there for fifth, and then it's going to be Law. He led things out, unable to hold on, taking it down for sixth. S. Hill for Arrow, they're coming on through. It's going to be Sam for seventh there. Gallagher in eighth. Squilari there. Velo Kicks in ninth. And Ling rounding out the top 10 in the men's race for the A's. And on over to the B category.
All right, we've got Adam Evans taking it out for the Barracudas ahead of his teammate Michael Pepper. Jeff Morton for the WMZBs. Another Bs there with Ian Maynink. Nick Johns, they're coming in fifth. And sixth, we've got Lou Ian from the Innsbruck Ringers. Oh, that's an interesting time zone for him. In seventh for the Dirty Sprockets, we've got Michael Templeton. Dwayne Hesp coming in eighth. David Squirrel in ninth. And Sean Blackie coming in 10th.
In for the C category, Gustav Reuters Ward coming on through for MRR, 45 minutes. Going to be Stephen Nowicki there, half a second back, a little bit of a gap it looks like. Solid kick it looks like from Gustav there. Alex Murthy for the big ring, 46 point. How do you do it? Is there actually half-inch teeth? I'm not sure how that's working. Half centimeter teeth or whatever it is.
Who knows?
Andrew Atkinson coming through for the Chargers. It's going to be Dugald Spenceley there for the GBs. And then Jason Rock there. We would have a thing saying with me and Dave that as we go lower in the category, we get better with the names. It's just true across the board here. Jason Rock there for the Commodores. Lachlan O'Reilly there. Toon Bike Works 1 in for 7th. Matthew O'Brien there. Aero Bix there for 8th. Yeah, I was scared to even say that word there. Rob Blue for the WTRL 46. Somehow doesn't have a half a tooth, I guess. I don't know what happened to his other half there. Darren Lee there for the WMZ Chasers. Coming on through in for the C category, in for 10th. And again, head on over to WTRL.racing for the Ds as they are still out there finishing things up. Real quickly, this is how things played out. 99 points for Hill. Took it up. Wow. I mean, that's a huge gap. The Arrow just absolutely dominating out there. Now, this is just the individual points. It will not actually, you got to add them all out for the teams, etc. But a big, huge gap there, I think, for the points when it comes to Arrow and the rest of the squad. So Enzo Bro going to have their work cut out for them, as you see here in with the A category. Real quickly, we'll look at that. Barrow, Watts, Smith. I think, again, Arrow is the conversation in the A category. But for the rest of the points and how they end up playing out, it's going to be a day, maybe 24 hours, not sure. Martin, maybe he'll give us an idea of how quickly the turnaround will be here. I have a feeling that the points might be a little bit easier and how it ends up playing out than the TTT situation. As a lot of times, a little bit more goes on in the background. I do see typing happening. I'm being told that there is typing happening on that, so.
Yeah, well, a lot goes on in the background between yourself and Martin. I get the easy job. I just get to sit and make bad jokes. I bet you've missed
and
me,
peanut
Nathan.
butter and jelly sandwiches. And peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, I think.
Well, jam. Nathan.
Oh,
you're in Apac.
No peanut
Come
butter?
on now.
Oh, man. Oh, gosh. Yeah, I'm being told later today, Martin's had a long day. We're just getting started. If you want some more of this fun ZL racing action, EMEA is going to be on with myself and Dave Toll. Make sure to jump in with that. Hit those follow buttons, do all that good stuff. And then I believe Kate most likely will be back later tonight. You guys changed your clocks, though, so that just throws a wrench into everything. So we'll see. Kate might be back. We might have to bin it and just say, whatever, it's just Nathan and Dave again. Sorry. We'll see how that ends up playing out.
Yeah, but we look forward to coming back next week. What course have we got next week, Nathan?
Oh, you put me on the spot.
Well, I put you on the spot.
Put me on the spot. I should know this. I'm doing the course recons too. It's the Flatland Loop. We're on with the
all right. Well, that's
loop,
another one for our sprinters. So I'm just going to put it out there now in the women's C, Beck Wyasak on that course. Not to put pressure on you, Beck, but I'm just throwing that one out there as an early pick. But it's great to be back, and I look forward to seeing
You put pressure on her back. I think what happened there is like. You put some, she's got to show up now and be like, oh, thanks a lot, Kate. Now I actually have to win this race. So it is in McCurry Islands. It's not a super familiar flatland loop, 3 laps, 39K. It's going to be a longer. I actually did a course recon for it already, actually. So I don't know why I'm totally, because we had these 2 races first, right? And then we have the Premier Division, and I did the course recon for the Premier Division. It actually featured yesterday on World of Zwift, and I'm like, what are we doing? Oh, yeah, Flatland Loop. Okay. All over the place here.
It's all right. It's ridiculous o'clock over there, Nathan. I understand. All right. Well, I think that's a big thank you and goodbye, and well done to all of our racers, and we will see you next week for that 39 kilometres in McCurry Islands Flatlands. Thanks for joining us.